Okay, so I'm now acting as co-chair for a while. And basically, this is a special meeting of the Energy Committee to discuss the MERC reports, Municipal Energy Resiliency Program reports for Holly Hall, Houghton Hall, and Lawrence Memorial Library. I think before we start, we have a guest. Hi,
How are you?
who are you?
Thomas Halpin.
Okay,
in
and
Bristol.
are you here for any particular reason or?
Curiosity.
Okay,
And interest in energy and its
Great.
usage.
great, okay.
Are you familiar with MERC?
Very only recently.
Do we want to just give them one?
Yeah, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Oh, okay, yeah. So I live in Bristol, with, my wife and four little ones. Been here for about 5-6 years. I'm an HVAC technician who's recently started his, my own business. Energy fascinates me and how we use it. So I'm here out of curiosity.
Great. Well,
So we got these
welcome.
three, maybe you can talk more to, I can try.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the state kind of contracted with Du Bois and King to do these assessments on different buildings.
Mhm.
And our three buildings that they looked at were Holly Hall, Howden Hall, and the library. And then they provided us with their report, their recommendations on what they would suggest, what they did a lot. Richard went through it with them. They took a lot of data. You're welcome to look at these if you'd like. And then they gave recommendations. So what we did was we have summarized the recommendations and we're going to talk about them in preparation for providing that information to the select board on August 12th.
Oh,
So
cool,
that's kind of where we're at right now.
cool.
So
You can fill in the blanks a
the
little bit.
background is part of the actions by the legislature to encourage towns to reduce their carbon footprints. That really is a primary reason for the MERP program. Recognizing that particularly the smaller towns do not have resources to do this on their own.
Mhm.
And so there is at stake potentially $500,000 to each town, no match. So if this process unfolds properly, Bristol could be in line to receive up to $500,000 to weatherize and make more efficient. And they're saying, they use the term, increase the resiliency of the buildings. But also where possible to switch out systems to move to electricity where possible from fossil fuels. Also included in the potential are wood pellet boilers. Those are specifically systems that could qualify. Okay, so basically tonight we plan to go through the summaries and see if we're ready to present them to the select board.
Cool.
So we have three people: Allison Puglio, David Fleschenheim, and Jonathan. Ben. I don't see Ben at the moment.
I'm here. Hello.
Okay, there you go. And then Ben, say your last name.
Galosdra.
Scalostra. Okay, Ben Scalostra. So I'm going to turn it over to the three of you to go through however you want to go through it. That's our engineering and architectural team.
Cool.
Okay.
So we have the three summaries done, one by Richard and one
or two by Allison. And they're basically somewhat just distilling the information from the report. So it's much shorter, summary than what's in the report. I guess, and within it, when I did a review of it, I had some questions about what we're actually trying to do. And I think I got one of those questions answered, which is this document we're creating is something we're going to either give them or send them or something. But anyway, it's if I was a select board person, I would be wondering what is weatherization projects. What there's no detail here. And so my question is, are the select board members going to know? Are they going to see the reports? Have they read the reports? But maybe even if you've read the report, you don't really know exactly what these things are, like the window retrofits or anything like that. And so I'm wondering, in our capacity as an advisory group, we're telling them, yes, we're going ahead with this, or we're going for money for dealing with the windows at Howden Hall, and the report says black them out. Put these blackout things in them. And I'm like, is the town really want to do that? And what is how do we talk about the actual scope of work that we're going to embark upon? And throughout the report, there also, let me just add, throughout the report, there's like options, like you could do this, or you could do that, but then one of my problems with with the reports that we have from Du Bois and King is that they don't really talk about those, like what they even included in those numbers.
Right.
I think that would have been good. So that's kind of my global view of this is like my question is like, won't they need more detail than this?
Let's go back to one of your first questions. The select board has had the actual reports as long as we have. Whether they've read them or not, I don't know, but I would assume, knowing some of them at least, that when they know it's on the agenda, at least some of them will have read the reports, at least skimmed them, and they will have in advance our summaries. And the questions you have, David, are questions, I think, to ask the select board. My sense is, take for example, the windows. My sense is that engaging contractors when weatherization or window installing contractors are called in to give bids, they will make proposals. Does that make sense?
Well, usually make a proposal though of a scope that someone has defined already, and so I guess I think if the scope is unclear, they're not going to really know what to price.
I think that might be where the getting the contractors involved is gonna help. I mean, I think my thought is that the initial meeting with the select board is just to give them what the numbers are and get their support. I mean, I don't think there's any way we're gonna know every last detail, when we go to them, because that's kind of the next step, right? Is to put the meat on the bones. These are just the estimates, but I would think it would be in their best interest to want to get this money, right? I would think. So I would think they're gonna know that we need to do more work, but this is roughly what what Du Bois and King are saying it's gonna cost. We don't know. We've all kind of said that once we get a real contractor in here, these are engineers, when we get a real contractor in here, the cost might be double,
Oh, that would be very different, yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It could be 30 to 40% more.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Plus the fact that I would think they would be suggesting options.
The contractors.
Yeah, based on
Right.
their expertise.
Right,
And it would be up to the select board at some point to say, no, we don't wanna black out the windows. No,
what were you gonna say?
The letter of the law, what does the legislation require?
That's a good question.
I'm not sure. In terms of,
The legislation that governs the money,
The motivating force, what is it saying is necessary for you to,
get the money.
yes, get the, yeah.
well, we're still exploring that a little bit. The Department of Buildings and General Services
Mhm,
is administering the project.
mhm,
And so the money, as I understand it, is also coming through the Regional Planning Commission. I might be wrong about that. I don't know what that link is, but I know the two entities are working together in the counties, or in the geographical areas. Eventually, there will be a request essentially for each one of these buildings
mhm,
with hard figures.
mhm,
My understanding is then, let's say Holly Hall is determined in projects to require $350,000 with real figures from contractors.
mhm.
Bristol, the town of Bristol would propose that. And Buildings and Grounds, if they accept that, will write a check for $350,000.
Mhm.
Okay? I'm not sure if I'm answering your question. No.
Mhm. What is, I think it speaks to what I'm hearing him ask is the scope of work. So you have an architect and engineer. But they need to know what they're architecting and engineering for, what levels of standard are there that the legislation requires.
With requirements, right?
Yeah, and then you can start building from there, because you can build whatever you want. I mean, there's it's that infinitum. So that's would be my first question is, what standard are we building to? What is our end goal?
Yeah, I don't
What are we
know how to
reaching
answer that.
for?
Yeah.
Because I don't see any, the executive summary, for example, is reduce electrical and fossil fuel consumption compared to what?
Is it to meet our, or the state's standards? Is it is it working toward those standards?
Well,
That you have to-
the standards are,
Wishy-washy,
yeah, I mean, they're not real. You know, they're,
reduced by X% by 2030, reduced by, right?
right.
I think you know, in general, is to reduce the carbon footprint, as Richard mentioned, and it's not by a certain percentage, because some of the, you know, it's going to vary across all sorts of buildings, like what you could really do to, you know, let's say in some of the reports, there was talk about like how the buildings now compare to current building codes, which is not, it's not particularly relevant because you're not required to bring those buildings up to current code, but it is a good metric, you know, to go against and say like, well, it doesn't quite, you know, it doesn't meet current codes, or it almost meets it, or and then to say, you know, if you insulate the available amount of, you know, wall, et cetera, that you'd be insulating, you may still not be up to code, you know. So I think it's just the idea is to improve. I don't think there's any specific, as I understand, no specific like goals, like certain level of performance or something like that. So
I think you're trying to reach the best
Right,
you can,
highest.
not a specific R factor. Yeah.
And within the county, isn't there also, the reason that they're doing it by counties is that there's towns within the counties that are higher energy burden, and they're gonna get like, they're gonna have, when they score it all and they decide who's getting the money, the people that have the highest energy burden are gonna be nearer toward the top of getting the money, and I think Bristol's kind of has a high energy burden.
Bristol is, I think there are
That's true.
6 towns,
Yeah,
and Bristol is one of the ones that has been rated as determined by the cost of energy to the Bristol residents, what they experience in their daily lives.
Okay, so it's not a metric based solely on, energy consumed. It's intertwined within an economic value system as well, a weighted economic value system. Okay,
and they call it energy burden, right?
Right,
okay.
and that's actually available. You can look at that on the Regional Planning Commission website. All the towns in Addison County are listed.
What about like a individualized self-assessment? For example, you can go and do like a blower door test on a building, then you have
They did that, right?
So you have a
that.
starting
Yeah.
standard.
Yeah.
So let me tell you what happened was, Du Bois and King came in and they spent on one day, a cold day in January, they had 2 teams spending about 3 hours per building. They did blower doors on the buildings, and then they did infrared photography, as it turned out, to show the spots where there were critical areas that were going to need attention. And also along with that, temperature gradients, and very close inspections of the heating, and if there are cooling systems, what kind of life expectancy they had, and so on, and efficiency. Okay, so that was done by these teams during this process.
Cool.
And I think that their stuff was
Swimming
results.
and oil, is that correct? All three buildings?
All 3 buildings are on oil. Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
This one's partially on electric, right?
Yeah, some of them have additional,
Resistance? Oh,
Yeah.
I do have.
yeah.
Like
The
here.
first floor is a heat pump. But it's also oil. It's a hybrid.
I'm wondering if we should start to talk about the individual buildings.
Can't hear Dave.
What's that? Oh, did you lose me? Can you hear me?
Just barely.
Oh. I'm wondering if we should start to talk a little bit about the individual buildings in this.
Yeah.
Let's just go down the list. I think a lot of it is pretty self-explanatory, thermostats, et cetera, but like there's some question about battery storage and some other questions that I thought maybe we should discuss. And so we can sort of give a recommendation, or I mean, maybe our recommendation won't matter in the end because the town will, decide what, if it's needed or not. But so is that sit well with everybody?
I think just one minor thing, or maybe it's not so minor. Madison Shropshire, the energy planner at Regional Planning Commission, said you might as well ask for everything. So there's that kind of thinking.
Oh.
We don't necessarily want to do that, but I think they're hoping to get some big numbers, I guess.
So like some of the stuff doesn't make sense, right?
Right.
Right, so why would we ask for stuff that doesn't
Right.
make sense?
So
Yeah.
pick a.
Want to
Let's
start
talk
with
about-
Holly Hall, David?
Yeah. Let's talk about that. currently has a it's a propane fueled generator. And so we're saying, we shouldn't necessarily, it might be useful to have a battery backup. I think it still could be. But there is also a question of where it would be, where it could be located. And also that we already have a generator. So when would it be put in play? It seems like it may not make sense to ask for that money for that. I don't know if we can just push it to another project or something, but I think that's how you wrote this, Richard, and you had it kind of as a blue, I guess,
Right.
The blue type, which is like, maybe we're not going to ask for that kind of thing.
I guess the blue in my mind was, we'll show it as a recommendation to the select board. They're ultimately going to decide. We don't necessarily think it's necessary. We don't think it's necessary since there's already a backup.
Right.
Got a town charging station,
Sorry?
town charging station.
We're working on a level 3 station that would go behind Shaw's.
Are you talking about this or the electrical vehicle chargers? Talking about this electric storage?
Yeah, I mean, if everybody's gonna go to lawnmowers, everything, you could have the backup battery, you could
Use it.
say once a week, we're gonna drain it, so recharge it and come
Oh, I
come
see.
charge all your stuff, all your negative lithium ion batteries that if you have, weed whackers. I mean, if you're gonna push legislation to get rid of all these engines, then
Do you hear what he was saying? What do you
Is that
think?
me? Oh, me?
Yeah.
I was gonna say that, and I'm sorry, I missed your name, but
Thomas,
what is it?
Thomas.
Thomas.
Tom.
Thomas,
forgive any
brings up
crazy
a good
ideas I
point.
put out there.
Sorry, Thomas. Brings up a good point about, it's possible that there could be times where, and maybe it'd be complex to do this, but there might be times where, the grid is very, it's being taxed, like on a day, I'm in Boston today and it was like 90 degrees and humid and everyone's got an air conditioner on. It might be useful for that. And maybe that might be something to really talk about a little bit more, because that's expensive power, and maybe the utility, which I assume is GMP, might see that as a positive. I don't know, but in a sort of more catastrophic kind of situation where we lose power totally, I would imagine the generator is already set to start up. So maybe it wouldn't be that scenario doesn't maybe make sense, but maybe other scenarios make sense for the battery.
You both raised the issue of during extreme heat demands, if there's an advantage to be able to feed that battery
To Green Mountain Power.
back into Green Mountain Power, so they don't have to purchase as much electricity at a high rate.
Yeah, we crossing over. I think a lot of times we like to own the equipment, so it'd be crossing over into mixing funds. I'm not sure. That's the first thing that comes to mind. Is given their requirement to balance the load on the network, it makes sense for them to own the equipment that they're trying to balance out, so they have full responsibility and control over it. So it'd be kind of maybe handing over some of the, it would be I don't know where that relationship.
Well, I think just
But it might be worth asking for,
Raise
the
just
issue.
because there's other options than
raise
just
the
using
issue.
it as a replacement
Yeah.
for a
Yeah.
generator.
Yeah.
And I mean, N+2 is always redundancy. I mean, if you
Right.
use this, get more, you know.
One of the things that we're looking at is in the case of a serious problem, like if we were in Lindenville right now, there may be need for warming centers or cooling centers.
Mhm.
So having that kind of backup capacity for our buildings would mean they would function as
Cooling center.
whatever is needed,
Mhm.
cooling or heating. Because I think some of this, the thinking now, I think after these last couple of summers, is really beginning to focus on resiliency.
Mhm.
You know,
So maybe we just leave it in there, and because we can maybe think about it in different ways, right? Think about it not only as a generator replacement, but as for other purposes as well.
yeah, so the blue just, in my mind, is there to,
Yeah,
you know, pay attention to this, you know?
yep.
Yeah,
And then shouldn't the electric chargers be blue as well? Because we said they're not applicable because we don't have a location for them. So should those be blue also?
let's see.
The electric vehicle
yeah,
chargers?
We just said not applicable.
Oh, okay, so we wouldn't even ask for that.
Yeah,
Okay,
because there's no parking space.
right. Okay,
I was wondering about that, Richard. There are those parking spaces right next to the building, sort of by the building side entrance.
where you're parked right now, Richard, right out here.
Yeah.
Oh,
would
we were
they
talking about
not
the
be-
side end.
Hmm?
Which ones? The ones
on the
where,
side
Where you're
right
parked.
where everyone goes through into the basement. Those are those
Okay.
3 parking spots there.
Mhm.
Would that be potential for that, or?
well, having gone through a number of meetings with the town council, the select board, I mean, on where to locate EV chargers in town, they are really reluctant to give up parking spaces. And so I'm not sure how that would work out in front of the building, whether they'd be willing to dedicate a space, but should we turn it blue?
Let's see.
Okay,
Because it would be a EV charger station. I see what you're saying.
let's turn it blue.
So you couldn't use it as a regular parking spot, is what you're saying?
Right, you can't, yeah, it's dedicated.
One thing I noticed with turning it blue, it makes it look like it is a special, like definitely do this. So I think that's something to think about when you're putting in there. It could be put in parentheses or something different than blue. It sounds like, whoa, this is a number one thing.
I don't see it that way.
Okay.
I would say we'll put an asterisk that those items in blue are questionable. Something like that?
That sounds great.
Okay, but that's a good point. I didn't even think of that. I don't think yellow would show up very well.
David, how about the top part, the energy conservation measures for Holly Hall? Those are pretty straightforward. We don't really need to talk about those, correct?
Yeah, that was just in general that it doesn't really define what they are, but I think
Right.
For this is probably, it sounds like we're not going to offer a lot of details. There's going to be some vetting that happens in the process. Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
And then what about the heating or I guess under the air-to-air heat pumps for the second floor meeting space? That 19,550.
Yeah, I think it does talk about the air-to-air heat pumps being an advantage over the air-to-water because of the possibility of cooling, or it's easier to provide cooling. I think this is another item that I wonder if there has to be more thought to it, because like, where are they going to go? And we don't want to see them from the outside. We don't want to see a bunch of
Compressors.
trunk lines and well, the compressors would probably be in the back, but all those lines. all those
Yeah.
refrigerant lines going, and you can certainly get them that where they could be floor mounted, but I don't know where they could be because we have all those radiators there on that second floor. But the floor mounted ones, at least you could, run all those refrigerant lines in the floor below. So I think we have, that basement space that you're in right now is all, there's at least access there.
So I think
anyway,
that's,
I think it's fine, and then we'll have to just
yeah,
talk it through with Champlain or whoever.
Okay. And then what about the last part, the heating system?
Well, and this is a question for Richard. Richard, you included the oil burner, the oil boiler, a new one. And I think I did send that question to Maddie about, I thought she told us that they're not going to fund like an oil-fired boiler because it's it's a fossil fuel appliance. It doesn't give us any kind of fuel switching or anything like that, even though the report said that's a possibility to do that. It's got like 7 years left on it, supposedly.
I think it says 14. It says it has 14 years left.
Well, I don't understand that, but maybe it does. Maybe it does. Well, and actually one of the things that was kind of interesting talking in that meeting about if we do heat pumps, that boiler would be used a lot less. It might actually extend its life. So I'm
true.
not sure if we should say we should change the boiler out or not. I'm kind
Okay,
of thinking maybe we shouldn't, but
so why don't we make that blue?
okay, we can make it blue
Yeah,
Asterisk,
and an asterisk.
Blue and asterisk.
small asterisk.
okay,
And
that's a
then
half
the
asterisk.
Yeah, and then the circulation pumps. That was a kind of a curious thing. It was kind of recommended in the report, but then they didn't really add any money for it.
Right.
They didn't,
That's when you did, right, Richard?
apparently, and I think Richard had a good idea by just including it and putting a bunch of question marks, because I think it really should happen. And they were saying to replace them when you replace the boiler. It's like, well, why would you wait? I mean, I don't know why you'd wait if you can get money for it. I think that would be a good energy saving mode right there. So, or measure. So you got $2,000 on this, I guess, but is that like a placeholder kind of?
I just went to the FW Web website and looked up EC Motors and, but it may not be directly applicable. I think they said there were 6 of them.
Mhm.
So it's just there.
So is it 6,000? Is it
No,
six
it's
for 2,000 or 2,000 each?
2,000. They're about, the ones that look like they were applicable were around $250
Oh, okay.
a piece.
So
somewhere.
that's total then.
Yeah,
These numbers for estimating labor and everything, or just for the equipment? Just the equipment.
we don't know.
I think they're supposed to include labor, but they don't really break it down.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's real.
That was our
This is
feel
all
too.
very, very low.
low, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
very, very low. From my experience, which is one man. So
Wow.
it's limited.
Well, we
but-
felt the same way.
It's real world.
I think so. Maybe this is all in my head, I don't know.
Okay.
Cool.
Okay, are we ready to maybe move on to Howden Hall?
So I just kind of did the same thing. I followed the same format that Richard had, broke it down by section. So it's pretty much what it is. It's pretty similar.
Yeah. One thing, Allison, I was wondering about, so you put the air to water heat pump in there, it was the same kind of, they had the same language in there that it would be easier to do the air to air or to be doing cooling. But I'm not sure how to say it exactly. I think the air to air was actually the 17,050. I think that was the.
Oh, I thought I took it right out of there. I thought that that's what the report said. Could I look at the Hall
Yeah.
report?
You're saying air to air is easier to do for cooling, or?
That's what they said here.
It says,
This is what they said.
let's see, go to the, what is it, page 5?
Yep.
It says air to air, oil hybrid there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Again, I think that should be questioned in a way that you know, that maybe the air to water would, that since they're saying it would be, you know, more compatible with the system they already have, but this cooling issue might be able to be solved other ways, and not other by other means, but through the heat pump. But just that we'll have to find locations for this kind of cooling units to do the cooling part. So anyway, I think that's,
Yeah, I'll
I think we'll
update
just
that.
change air to air, and
Yep.
that's pretty much it. This is another, this is just an added kind of element, I guess. In the report, it talks about upgrading the electrical panel from 100 amps to 200 amps if we're using heat pumps. And since we're recommending this, I wonder, it's not, it seems like it's another one of the, it's kind of like the circulation pumps. We don't really know how much that would cost. They just say it would have to be done. It doesn't appear that they added any money for it. So I'm wondering if we should add that.
I agree. I think we should.
Just
So that would that be in section, is that in section 1.4?
That note, that is in, well, the note is under 3.3 in the report, and let's see, where's that section? Where would it go? I think it would just go at the end, I guess. It's not, it would be part of, I guess it's part of the, it would be part of 1.4, I guess, because it is required for the air-to-air heat pumps. So I guess I just put it there, and it's
Okay.
do like what Richard did with the you know, $sign question mark.
Services. For all three buildings.
The
No.
same's gonna be true
How
of the
long is-
library too.
Because it's
Okay.
a much much less used building, you know. But the library and this building, I think the library is 200. This might be 400, because it already has heat pumps.
Yep, I'll add that in. Okay.
Should we go off to the library?
I wasn't quite sure though what they were thinking when they had the solar PV in there. Are they just thinking we're gonna put solar on Howden Hall?
No, I think because
We can't, right?
I don't know if we can or not, but we are already using electricity from the Route 116
So should that
project.
be blue?
Yeah, is it not?
No, I didn't make
Yeah.
it blue, but it should be blue, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Are you talking about for Howden Hall?
Yeah.
They didn't actually, I don't remember this, Richard, did they?
Oh, you're saying how?
For Howden Hall,
You
yeah,
mentioned
for
that
Howden
for
Hall.
Holly Hall, that it was the building was already served by the, you know, connection
Right.
for the,
You're right. You're right.
So Howden Hall is not.
No,
yeah, how
no,
did?
I think the
We
solar
could put it
PV
there
makes
and-
sense.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right, so I'll leave it there, okay.
I guess it's got a fairly low load on it, and that system they're proposing is pretty small, but
Yeah.
and probably not priced very well either. It's probably
No, it seems pretty low.
I think that might include incentives. And
And it
Yeah, I
could
was
be
gonna ask,
helpful.
After incentives.
is the money coming from a different source to where you can use the incentives that are? I know there's some projects where if you're using certain monies, they don't allow you to double dip, so they won't add the incentives, so I was wondering if
I think what they're counting on here is not ARPA incentives, but the Inflation Reduction Act.
okay.
Okay.
Mm.
I think that's the case, which is much more open. Although you can't, actually that money can't be applied to heat pumps for some strange reason. It can be applied to solar panels.
Okay.
Okay.
So I'll make those changes to the Howden Hall one, and then I'll put the subtotals down at the bottom.
Did they make any recommendation for thermal storage?
No.
Maybe something worth looking into.
Are you talking like thermal energy networks, that kind of thermal storage?
Yes.
We should
Along
talk
those
sometime.
lines.
She's gonna get excited about that, yeah.
Yeah, or individual, I mean, you could, instead of giving the heat to the atmosphere, you could have hot water. You could get a couple storage tanks and, yeah.
Yeah.
Or you could hook all three buildings up together and have a triangle.
Well, we're certainly, Sally is,
Yeah.
Sally's talking about that.
you know about the thermal energy network bill
A
that
little
just,
bit, yeah,
just
I'm just
passed.
now becoming familiar with it, yeah.
Sally's convening a group to link, let's see, what is that?
We're looking at the north side of Main Street, hooking with the Pomerleau, Shaw's, Walgreens area, possibly.
Cool, you're gonna take the heat they're using, Shaw's is using for,
Waste-
their coolers.
Put the waste heat into a circular system.
Yeah,
But we should talk sometime.
yeah, definitely.
What
Your
is,
ice perk up?
I'm working with Debbie New on this, and we've been talking about it, and so be glad to.
Yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, and,
How do we
Sounds
connect then?
You wanna give me, do you want
Yeah.
to give me your email, and then I'll
Yeah.
send it out to the
Yeah,
group?
that works. Yeah, sure.
Thanks.
Thank you.
That's Sally Burrell.
Yeah, we should have introduced all of ourselves. Okay. So do you wanna, David, do you wanna talk about the library then?
Sure. And some questions there too. There, let's see. That would also require this upgrade because we're doing heat pumps. And Allison, you have both heat pumps there, and I think we're wanting one of those numbers. The air to air, I think, is probably the better number to use. There, you've got a duplicate there. We wouldn't use both of those. Do that. You see the 19.
Yes, yeah, so would be, so I should do the air to air there and just take the air to water out?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay,
And then at the bottom of that should also be the upgrade, electrical upgrade from 200 amps to 300 amps
yep,
for this, heat pumps. So on this one, same thing about electric vehicle chargers. Any possibility for, does the library have parking in the back? I'm trying to remember.
very little, they have like
Very little.
three spots, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah, could they do charging stations?
The problem there is that snow sheds off the roof and just piles right there, and it's kind of a mess and icy and all that, and so I think it would be kind of a rough place to put something if you didn't want it to get broken.
Okay.
Is there required distance from the building? Like, for example, across the street, you have the park, and library's not too far from the park as well. Is there a required distance? They would say, all right, here's a.
It's interesting you bring that up, Thomas, because the report says that the building could use it, but if it could be located on another town building or, you know, I would even think you could do a parking structure. I mean, when I say parking structure, I mean you park on like on a multi-level parking structure. But we at Rockydale, where I live, we put a timber. What would you call it?
Timber frame.
Yeah, it's a timber framed, you know, sort
Yeah.
of array.
Like a carport?
It looks like a carport, yeah,
Right.
sort of. And the roof is basically the collectors. And you could do that on a parking area for, you know, for the town somewhere. But I don't know if that, you know, the town would like to entertain like a project somewhere else besides the library, but we could, you know, that could be discussed, I guess.
I think
That's
that
what the
would
report
not,
said.
that, I don't think that would be within the scope of MRF.
Oh,
But
yeah,
it,
maybe not.
I've wanted to suggest, until this level 3 came up behind Shaw's, I was really kind of hot on the idea of turning a little bit of the high school parking lot into a parking ride with level 3 chargers. Just like they're doing in Virgins, for example, taking a part of the Shaw's parking lot. And Valerie responded positively to that idea, but I don't think it would have anything to do with MRF.
I think it's better to stick with more of the weatherization and all the stuff we've talked about for this particular project, because we've got to move it through, and it'll be easier with the select board to be working on the 3 main buildings, I think, right now.
Yep. I agree.
I did have one question. So if you look at the report, if you look at paragraph 1.5, where it talks about occupant health and comfort measures, you know, they talk about replacing the existing thermostat with a programmable one and adding mechanical ventilation system. They just throw it out there, but they don't have any cost. Well, David, how do you think we should? I did the same thing that Richard had, where I put you know, question marks, because there's nothing there. They didn't add anything. I wasn't sure how to do that for the purposes of communicating to the select board.
I think what you've done is about what we can do, I think.
Okay,
Because I do remember that they did talk about the mechanical ventilation, and also we, in our meeting with Maddie and Ian had mentioned that, you know, that mechanical ventilation, I think actually Maddie said this too, that you know, these occupant loads are very low that they used, and there are times when their occupant levels are much higher in all these, you know, like the second floor of Holly Hall and stuff like that. You know, so it might make the town would probably be good to be advised to look at that issue and improving this, you know, improving air quality. And the library was cited as one place that they said it would be difficult to do, but I think there are probably some really good contractors out there to figure out how to do it, because those spaces can be, you know, like that space in the basement with a kids library is, you know, that could have quite a pretty high occupant load that I've seen anyway.
Lots,
I think it makes a lot of sense.
lots of little runny noses.
Well, that too.
Especially if you're gonna tighten up an old building, I'd highly recommend, just for the building's sake as well, to
Sure.
need some ventilation.
That's good, yeah.
Yeah, they're used to breathing quite a bit, and then you tighten it up and
they don't have any, yeah, they can't breathe.
start trapping moisture, and yeah.
Okay, so I'll just leave it the way it was with the question marks then, and we'll just bring it up that, yeah, that was suggested.
It seems worth it for hearing from a contractor too. If it's on there, we could get a price, and that would be worth having.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Okay,
okay.
so I'll do the same thing. I'll add the electrical upgrade, and then I'll put the totals on here. Like what Richard had done. So I'll clean these two things up and send them back out.
And I'll put the asterisks on them.
So
Allison,
the asterisks go where the blue is that what we're
With the
saying?
blue. I'm not giving up the blue.
Okay, so I'm gonna put asterisks on the one that I did too then, okay.
sorry, Sally. You don't get your way. Allison, I had one question. When you said see cost above.
Yeah, I'm not sure what I was thinking. I'm not sure if I still
I
had
don't think you need
vacation
that.
brain.
You could just take that out. Yeah.
Yep, I will. Yep,
Sally, would you feel better about green?
for go.
Maybe.
No, the green is not a go.
Maybe green on all the other ones, so it's green for go, and then another one maybe is like
Yellow.
brown for maybe not.
Brown?
For pooping on it.
We think this is crap. Let's see if yellow actually shows up.
So
No,
David, and Richard, how are we going to, how are we gonna communicate? Are we gonna just send these to
I think it's,
Ian, or are we gonna go to the meeting, or should we make a presentation? How are we gonna do that?
I think we should give them to Ian. And Val is already has invited us.
Okay,
And I think we should go, as many of us who can. And just answer questions. If they want a presentation, you guys could,
maybe we could just tell them what we've done here.
yeah, the summary sheets, yeah,
Okay,
yeah. If they want a presentations, I would say split it into three. Each one of you guys present it, and a summary,
which is what this is.
which
Yeah.
is what that is, yeah. And that is,
And be clear
that's-
that, you think this is what should go on, like,
Yeah, what's the ask? What are we asking them to do?
we're asking them to take it now and go through the next steps of bringing in contractors and getting
To
prices.
go through it?
Yeah.
And would we be the ones that would be meeting with the contractors?
I'm not suggesting that.
Okay,
If they come up with that, we can decide who of us have time to do it.
okay.
But I think it really is a town function.
I guess my only concern, and I don't know, maybe I'm just a worrier. If we just hand it off to them, are they gonna just let it go by the wayside, and are we gonna lose out on the opportunity? That's
I'm
part
with
of
you,
my
Allison, totally with that. I think it's really important that we
Champion, we have to
we
be the
asked-
champions,
we'd be
right?
glad to do, what we need to do, but if it's better for it to come from the town to the contractors, then, and they're ready to do it, that's good. If not, I think we need to take it and do it, because the timing is going by fast.
It really is, yeah. I
And,
think we have to impress upon them the time.
and I think I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I think that presenting, just say, this is what we've found so far, this is what we think is most important, we think we can, this is, like, be confident and positive in what we've talked about and what we've learned and we've gotten, and just say, and we would like to have your go ahead, so that we could go ahead, and we'd like to know what kind of help we can get from the town to do it, and how we could work together, or something like that, just so that, but say we need to move on this, because if we want $500,000 to get these buildings done, we need to do it now.
Maybe one slight change of that is, I wonder if we should just ask them what they would want the next steps to be. Because I don't know if we really want to volunteer to do the whole thing, or, you know, they, you
I
know,
hear ya.
we can't spend any money, as we know, as our advisory group, but, I think that might be good for a discussion, and I think, Sally, that urgency, you know, trying to impress upon them the urgency of moving, and, you know, maybe it's gonna be, you know, us with someone like Ian or some, you know, like you know, joining together. I mean, I think it is better than just handing it off, because, you know, we're the ones that've been looking at this more closely. And I think it might be a lot to ask the select board to kind of dig into it now and now figure out what you want to do. But I think maybe there's you know, just talking about next steps and how can we get this money, and it's the timetable is very short, and just having that conversation, and maybe there'll be some good back and forth, of sharing ideas of like, well, you know, maybe 2 select board members and 2 of us or 3 of us or whatever.
Right. Do they meet in this room here?
Yeah.
So they meet in this room, so we could project this and walk through
Yeah.
them, each one of
Yeah.
them. I think that's what we should do, right? Do you agree, David?
Sure.
The summary sheets and just, you know,
It
quickly
is.
run through it.
Yeah, it's better than just staring down at your, you know, piece of paper on
Yeah.
your desk.
So they can see them,
Yeah, and everybody can be looking up instead of looking at whatever they got handed. I think that's a good idea.
Right.
So,
Okay.
I'm thinking that maybe the select board, the main need from the select board is a go-ahead. And then it might be more of town administration that does that work, or the new grant, I don't know, not grant writer, but I'm not really sure who would do the work. It's,
I would think it would be the staff.
yeah, right.
Valerie,
So it's not, yeah, it's not the select board they just need to say, okay,
Yeah,
this is a good idea, let's go forward, we need the money, we need to upgrade the buildings. So then what's next? Who can do it, and that kind of thing.
And should we touch base with Ian before?
sure. Sure, I think as soon as these are ready.
Yep.
Let's send them, you send yours, I'll send mine to Ian. So
Do we
that's
want to
it.
send them all at the same time?
I don't think it matters.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
All right, so you'll send yours, I'll send mine.
Mhm.
All right, and I'll probably copy all of you
Oh,
when
yeah,
I
and
do
I'll do the
that.
same.
Because I'll try to get this cleaned up and send it tomorrow.
Okay, and I'll get mine off shortly, yeah, by tomorrow. I'm in the midst of, I had a very close colleague die the last couple of days. And I'm writing a eulogy right now.
Well, we can do it, we can get it to him by Monday. How about-
Yeah, I
That's
think-
why, okay, we'll
yeah,
get it to
let's
him
do
by
it by
Monday.
Monday.
Okay,
So I'd
okay.
like to get that.
Yeah, no, definitely. Okay.
Okay, so at the meeting, who's gonna present what? How do you wanna handle it?
There's going to be the 3 of us, Ben, myself, and Allison.
Good. Okay, do you want me to,
What'd you
That
say?
was a question, Richard.
do you want me to just kind of lead off with the philosophy behind it?
Yes, yeah.
That'd be great.
And
If
then get
you have
to-
the history. Yeah, you
so
have
that
the
they
history.
know, yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
That'd be for
yeah,
us.
I'll get some Plato and Socrates and, you know.
Will the select board have gotten all of these documents ahead of time? That's usually really helpful. to have
Well,
them
We're
have
gonna send them to
documents.
Ian and ask him to distribute them, yeah.
I
That
think
sounds
let's send them to Val too.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's great. That's the way to
Yeah.
go.
Yeah,
So Ben, would you like to, any particular building, if you wanted to present one of the buildings, would you?
Yeah, I mean, I'll do any of them. It doesn't matter to me. I'm familiar with all 3. I'll take Howden Hall. How about that?
I don't know if it would make sense,
I think it makes sense for one person to do it.
Oh, I
the
see.
whole thing.
I don't know. Don't you think it's more consistent if one person just runs through it? David, do you want to do that?
Sure.
Oh,
Yeah, it might make sense.
I just think it's more consistent, right?
So Richard would do the first part, the sort of philosophy and Plato and Aristotle, and then I'll do the nuts and bolts, the real
Yep.
stuff.
Yeah,
And then Ben and I can sit back and answer questions if needed or
That's great.
whatever, or just be there for moral
yeah,
support.
we'll, and then I'll leave and you guys can handle the rest. Does anybody, I've been through all the buildings in intimate detail. Does anybody in the next week or so before the 12th want to go through, just walk through the buildings and look, or you feel conversant enough? I've been up in the tower, down in the basement.
David wants to look.
Okay, so let's figure a time next week when we'll do that. Are you around next week?
Yes.
Okay. It'll probably be later in the week, but probably after the 7th. Okay, yeah, that might be fun.
Would you mind if I came along, took a look?
Sure,
Yeah.
Yeah, I have his email, so,
okay, circulate that.
yeah.
by the way, Thomas, we are looking for another member for the for the Bristol Energy Committee. We'd love to have you.
I'm interested. Yeah.
Oh,
great.
How often do you all,
Once per month.
once per month? I can handle that.
This is a special meeting, so
Yeah.
it's out of
Oh, yeah, we
sequence.
can't talk now. Oh, yeah.
We meet on the third Wednesday of every month.
Okay, yeah. So my
Okay.
interest.
Sounds good. You guys think about how you want to handle the chairmanship, because I will be stepping back from co-chair.
We should do that at the next meeting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
That sounds like something the other co-chair should probably be involved in deciding.
yeah.
yeah, absolutely. I did,
Well, do remember that I was the chair for 4 years on my own, so it could be a oneer if someone wanted to step up to doing it.
yeah, I know, Carl is swamped, at work, and I'm sure he would be happy to have a co-chair or somebody become chair. So, next time.
Okay.
Okay,
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.